Music has a way of opening doors to a whole new world. We are inviting some special guests today to help us do just that. Hello, I'm Katie Dudick, and I'm the Office Manager for the Department of Multicultural Affairs. And we are so excited to have you all joining us today for the celebration. I would like to now introduce our guests that will be performing for you throughout our virtual celebration, Trio Azteca.
Thank you so much, Trio Azteca, for that wonderful performance. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Geronda Robinson, the Associate Director of Multicultural Affairs, and on behalf of our President, Dr. Linda Livingstone, and the Department of Multicultural Affairs, we'd like to welcome you to the Hispanic Heritage Virtual Celebration. As Hispanic Heritage Month begins, we want you to take the time to educate yourself on the leaders and world changers that have shaped the lives of all of us across the United States of America. From heritage to culture to traditions to creativity and arts that make you smile and also make you cry, to the science and creations that have changed the way we live for the better. Hispanic Heritage Month is not just to be celebrated during Hispanic Heritage Month. It's supposed to be a lifelong celebration. Now we'd like the time to thank everyone who's tuned in today for your continual support of the Department of Multicultural Affairs. To Mayor Dylan Meeks and the community, thank you for always embracing Baylor and making Waco a home away from home for our students. We'd also like to thank the departments on campus for always supporting multicultural affairs in our endeavors. And to Aramark, though this is virtual, we thank you for always coming alongside us to support us. Now I have the honor to introduce you all to our ministry associate and chaplain, Ms. Caitlin Anderson, to lead us in prayer.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Anderson. If you guys will go ahead and bow your heads in prayer with me. God of multitude and abundance, thank you for how you have shown your abundance here on earth through the multitudes of cultures and languages and traditions that enable us to celebrate our humanity and praise your divinity, God, your goodness, God. And we again say thank you that this God of all creation is also a God of intimacy, that you have chosen your children with all their cultures and complexity to be the vessels by which your glory is displayed. Today we celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month alongside you, God, remembering in our churches the leaders, teachers, and theologians that have been a part of our Christian faith tradition. We celebrate and honor them, God, for the ways they have spoken the truth of God's love and for peace and justice for all peoples. May this truth, spoken in ways only our Hispanic brothers and sisters can, continue to resonate and change our churches and our hearts. It's in your powerful name that we pray. Amen. So the history of Hispanic Heritage Month is so important. So I'd like to introduce Multicultural Affairs graduate apprentice Lauren Fisher to tell us a little bit about that history.
The purpose of Hispanic Heritage Month is to honor and respect Hispanic culture and the histories behind them. It was also created to celebrate the positive impact Hispanic Americans had on our country. According to the 2019 census, people of Hispanic origin make up the nation's largest ethnic minority, making this Heritage Month even more important to celebrate. Hispanic Heritage Week was first introduced by President Lyndon B. Johnson in 1968, and Congress passed a law to extend the celebration for a whole month. Some may ask why this month is split over 2 months. In President Johnson's original proclamation, 5 Latin American countries, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua, earned their independence from Spain on September 15, 1821. This date was held firm when expanding the week to a month. How can we celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month? There is an official government website that has a calendar of events, some even virtual. You can attend, as well as events here on campus. You can also celebrate by reading books written by a Hispanic author or support a Hispanic-owned local business.
Que te quiero, my name is Jeffrey Griggs, and I'm the Assistant Director here in the Department of Multicultural Affairs. I have the honor of introducing our keynote speaker, Mr. Fernando Arroyo. Fernando Arroyo serves as the Chief of Staff of Waco Family Medicine, a 14-site federally qualified health center serving nearly 60,000 patients in the heart of Texas. He graduated from Baylor University with a Bachelor's of Science in Biology, and from there, he pursued his Master's in Educational Administration at Concordia University. Mr. Arroyo later earned an MBA from Baylor University Hankemer School of Business. He is highly involved in the Waco community, serving in various levels through his work on advisory boards, his church's pastoral team, and operating as a founding board member of Startup Waco. When he is not busy with his numerous responsibilities, Mr. Arroyo can be found enjoying live music, hiking with his wife and kids, or perfecting numerous cuisines. Please join me in welcoming our Hispanic Heritage Lunch keynote speaker, Mr. Fernando Arroyo.
Bienvenidos, welcome, and Sick'em Bears. I want to thank the team in the Department of Multicultural Affairs for organizing this momentous occasion. And I want to thank all the students listening to this program. And although we're not together in person as I would have liked to, I'm with you in solidarity and in spirit, and I hope to be able to encourage you today. Lastly, I'd like to thank Dr. Livingstone and her team who have been leading through a pandemic, and it's no easy task to do that. But she's done it with integrity, with conviction, and with compassion. Today we kick off Hispanic Heritage Month when we celebrate the contributions of folks in the United States who trace their roots to Spain, to Mexico, to Central America, to South America, and to the nations of the Spanish-speaking Caribbean. Now, I want to invite you to come with me on a walk into a small clearing in the jungle of the Yucatan Peninsula in the early 2000s. Single-room thatched roof huts scattered throughout the clearing, and outdoor campfires are billowing smoke from large pots, campfires with cornmeal hand-milled, and a mixture of annatto in there. Annatto is a condiment that's bright red, and that comes from the achiote tree indigenous to that region. Strained over one of the pots, there's a young visitor struggling to stir the mixture over the open flame. It's something that villagers do multiple times throughout the day, day in, day out. And this young man is ready to call it quits. That young man is me, in my 20s, not too long after undergrad. I'm trying to learn as much as possible about my own Mayan language, my own bridge from my past to my future, and what my purpose was going to be and what difference I was going to make. Now I'm trying to learn really through this trip, where do I belong? You see, my right arm starts getting tired and stirring that pot, and I hand over the spoon to my left hand and I start stirring it the other way. And immediately the Mayan matriarch of the village who's teaching me how to make tamales begins darting at me as fast as she can. And she's yelling at me, and I don't know what she's saying because she's speaking in Mayan and she doesn't speak any Spanish at all. And she grabs the spoon from me and she begins to scold me. In amazement, I turn to my translator and I say, "What is she saying? What is she saying?" And the translator says, "She's saying, don't undo what you did. Don't undo what you did by stirring it in the opposite direction." And I was a little quizzed by that. I wasn't sure what that meant. But as I talked to her afterwards, I began to see that she saw something that I did. Now, I didn't share the same global view and framework that she did, but what she could see was that there was something extraordinary about the everyday act of preparing a meal for someone else. And that extraordinary care was very, very important. Now, this was a lesson for me in the value of inviting the extraordinary into what I might consider ordinary. Now, this was a lesson that stuck with me throughout the many different opportunities that I've had to be able to see the extraordinary in what might seem ordinary. I taught science day in and day out and served in administration at a disciplinary alternative school to help students overcome behavioral issues and academic struggles. I helped families build their own first ever homes in El Salvador and in the United States. There was a particularly horrible crime spree that impacted family members of mine on unbanked immigrants. And this led me to partner with banks and businesses and the police chief to help immigrants open up low-cost bank accounts and avoid becoming a target to thieves. A mix of my former students and local businesses joined to form various networks to help minority-owned businesses with startup money and with low to no interest loans and business competitions. And through our current community health clinic, I get to support our physicians and our frontline healthcare workers battle this deadly pandemic. And we do this in service of the most vulnerable in our society, many who are uninsured or underinsured. Now, you might be wondering, as a student, what your contribution will be. It could be that you're trying to figure out, what do I want to be when I grow up? Or perhaps you're feeling just overwhelmed by the pandemic. It could be that you already know that you know that you know that you know what you want to be when you grow up and what problems you want to solve. You might be wondering, where do I belong? Am I even in the right major? Especially after failing organic chemistry for the third time. It could be that you're stuck in the tension between being too Latino for some and not Latino enough for others. It could be that you're being pulled between multiple languages, cultures, countries, and communities. And perhaps, even though it may not be the case, perhaps you feel like your family's future, hopes, successes, and dreams rest on you doing everything right and having it all planned out. My family said to me after graduate school, hey, why aren't you going to medical school? Because I didn't go to medical school, but I was able to contribute in other ways, simple ways, perhaps extraordinary ways, if I have the eyes to see. My own mamacita linda, my mother, my beautiful mother, was sad that I wasn't going to be a doctor. It's what she always wanted, right? And with good intention, she said, mijo, we came to this country. I worked hard and I sacrificed much for you and your brother to progress and not to regress. That's why I left everything to give you a better life. Don't throw away that opportunity. And I disappointed her. Although I can tell you that wasn't the last time I disappointed her. But most recently, I've been observing the demographic and economic shift in our country and the opportunities that there are for Latino students like you to address the moment, to own the future, and to lead the way. You are well positioned to create a more diverse and collaborative world. You have an ingredient, a skill to contribute, something that will add to this delicious dish that we're cooking up together. You see, I grew up in the 80s, which meant I listened to Celia Cruz, George Strait, U2, and Bono, lead singer of U2, tells an interesting story about representation that transformed his One campaign to combat poverty and disease. He brought together well-intentioned and well-resourced individuals to help make a transformation in the world towards a positive change. Bono tells the story of a Senegalese man he met in Paris who was concerned that there was no representation in his leadership group. And the Senegalese man said, Bono, do you know the Senegalese proverb, if you want to cut a man's hair, it is better if he is in the room. This man was pointing out that there was no client representation on his nonprofit. Now, the man said it in a loving way, but Bono didn't miss the point. He actually says about this experience, I need to be careful about what I think someone else needs, because those we serve know what they need. I am not African, and this Messiah complex hasn't turned out too well. You see, a seat at the table matters. Representation fosters belonging. This knowledge informed Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta in their efforts to organize farm workers to fight for better conditions. They helped create the platform that workers could stand on to speak for themselves, and you have the opportunity to help build platforms and to speak about your experiences. There are a couple of findings that came out of the most recent 2020 census that paint a picture of the moment and the opportunities and the role that you can play. Nationally, those who describe themselves as Latino are now at around 19% of the population. And in Texas, Latinos grew to 39.3% of the state's population, nearly equal to the non-Hispanic whites of 39.7% of the Texas population. However, only 1.2% of elected officials are Latino. You see, population numbers, they do matter, because that's how federal funds will be distributed and invested in your community and my community. These numbers are used to determine voting districts, to some extent city councils, school boards and county commissions. If we cannot be at the table, we'll need to roll up our sleeves and build some new tables where everyone has a seat. But you see, there's diversity among Latinos. We don't all believe the same way, and that's great. We need more than passion. We need more than population to build a better world. Because you see, demographics does not equal destiny. What we need are young people with a commitment towards building better tables that are diverse, inclusive, and collaborative. Author Juana Bordas calls this Latino value, not just Latino, but very Latino value of diversity that is welcoming to all. A pico de gallo mix. Pico de gallo. You see, pico de gallo is comprised of ingredients that have their own distinct elements and flavor profiles, but together form a collective identity. Now imagine that, black, white, brown, and everyone else, a splendid pico de gallo for those new tables that you and I are building. Now, you've heard it said that if you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. If you teach him to fish, he eats for a lifetime. But let's expand that just a little bit more. The puzzle where we need your help is in helping answer the question, who owns the pond? Who owns the pond? Because in our world, the fisherman is at the mercy of the pond owner. The owner controls the access. Latinos accounted for 82% of the growth of the U.S. labor force. Latino women start businesses at 6 times the national average, yet represent less than 1% of entrepreneurs who win capital investments. So yes, give the woman a fish. Teach her to fish. But if you really want to make a difference, invest in her. Invest in him. Invest in the local communities that have been fishless. Now, a few years after I crushed my mom's dreams of having a doctor as a son, my aunt, my mom's sister, said to me, "Mijo, you know what? Your mom's really proud of you." And I asked her, what do you mean? And she continues, "A missionary came to our church. And the missionary was talking about all the wonderful things God was doing in our communities to help with bringing hope to the children, to help with bringing medicine to communities." and to help building homes for those individuals and families who did not have a home. And your mom, my tia says, my aunt, says, your mom said to me, while the preacher was still preaching, that my son gets to help alongside others doing the same exact thing. Now, we can all do little things with great love. And that's the point, little things with great love. So in summary, you belong here. But not only at Baylor, you belong in this time, especially during a pandemic, especially during a global awakening to the inequalities and disproportionate impact around the world. You have a unique contribution to make. No matter how small you might think your skills are, or how relevant you think they are a part of a bigger picture. You are well positioned to address the moment, to own your future, and to lead the way to a more diverse, inclusive, and collaborative world. Now, I'll leave you with a few things that you can do. Number one, extend that same spirit of welcoming, of hospitality to others, to everyone. Number two, join campus, Waco community, and national efforts to build new tables of inclusion and collaboration. Number three, join the Hispanic and the African American Chambers of Commerce, and join the Hispanic Leadership Network, and help invest in Latina and Black entrepreneurs. Lastly, volunteer for health initiatives to combat this virus. The future is shaped by how you address this moment, even if you don't become a doctor the way that I know your mom wants you to. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month, and thank you.
Thank you, Fernando, for sharing your story with us today. I am Pearl Beverly, Director of Multicultural Affairs, and thank you again for joining us. Now, if you want to hear more about Fernando's story, I'd like to invite you to come out to Spiritual Life and Neighbor Night, Tuesday, September the 21st at 6 p.m. Thank you all again for coming, and please enjoy the rest of your day.
Celebrate.